Hello, system thinkers. Welcome to The Question. The Question is a live, collaborative learning show committed to broadening your perspective on design systems. I'm your host, Ben Callahan, founder of Sparkbox and Redwoods design system community. If you have a moment, please get subscribed to the show out at bencallahan.com/thequestion. Let's get into it. Davy, give us a quick overview of just like who you are and sort of what got you into the design system space.
Oh, yeah. So I've been a product designer. So I'm one of the product designers on the Atlassian Design System, previously at Meta, as you see on my hat in that portrait. I've been in design systems, for a while. Some number under 10 years, but over 6 years specifically. And I think the compartmentalization, production, operational aspect of this is tuned very well. And then I think as in the last 9 months or so, as things have been shifting and workflows have been changing, being able to systemize that sort of thing and repeat things in a much more rapid manner, that has been a big interest of mine. I have a podcast called Design System Office Hours linked there, and we're recently going to episode 100. So we're getting, that's going to be one of the next ones. So that's like a pretty big deal. Based out of Sacramento, home of the Deftones and the Sacramento Kings. So those are two things we are known for.
Dude, the podcast, man, everybody knows your voice, and now they get to see your smiling face.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Second time, two-time right. Question co-hoster.
That's right. Yeah. Every time we get a chance to chat, Davy, I just always enjoy it, man. You have such a wonderful posture in the space. You just like welcoming, and you challenge folks in like a really, I don't know, just like a gentle way that I think is needed in the space. So I appreciate you coming on again, man. Thank you. Okay, so when we were chatting, Davy, we knew that I knew you wanted to talk AI in some capacity, and so we landed on this concept of AI as automation in design systems, and we thought we would dig in a couple different ways. And so we asked 4 questions of all of you. The first question was, when you think about your current design systems workflow, what percentage of your time do you think could be automated? And we gave you 0, 25, 50, 70. Oh, that should be 75, I think, and 100%. And an NA, of course. And the next question was should be automated. So could versus should was sort of the first 2 questions. And then we asked you 2 follow-ups. The third question was, in what areas of our work do you believe we should avoid AI automation and why? And the fourth question was, in our world, craft used to mean beautifully and elegantly designed and implemented interface work. In a 2026 design systems context, what does craft mean to you? And so we got so many fun answers. You guys know this. Every time we do it, it's just, y'all take so much time and care and thought when you answer. We sent this out to 1,077 design system practitioners. We got 101 responses, crossed over that 100 threshold. Davy, that's awesome. And as always, you can see the raw data here, do your own analysis and share that back. I would love to hear what you see in the data. I loved this. I wanted to start, if it's okay, Davy, I wanted to start with this quote by Greg. I just thought this was like a nice framing for the day. I think this was in the fourth question, but he said, there's always been a split between the people who believe in their craft and those that do this as a job. Neither is a slight on either group, but AI is empowering the latter. But the people who care about craft are the ones driving conversations like these and keeping track of the guardrails. I just thought that was a really nice sort of like way to frame our conversation. You know, nobody here, I think, is 100% anti-AI or tooling, right? Like we want to see the tools evolve, but we also just want to be smart about how we use those things and where we put them into our workflows. Those first 2 questions. So Davy, I want to hear your sort of gut response to looking at the 2 charts here that are the more quantitative questions and sort of graphed out answers. What did you see when you looked at this?
Yeah, I think the the interest in this topic overall. So the last episode that we posted of the podcast was a episode about the Zeroheight design system report,
Mm,
which someone should help me link here. I'm going to post. I have the link, but I don't have the picture open. But one of the questions there was how many of y'all use automation in like your design token pipeline? And 60% said none, like no,
hmm
which just seems like when I was talking to my co-host PJ about it, design systems is ripe for automation. Like
hmm
that's our job is to create repeatable processes. So that 60% that haven't done token automation, then we start to think like, why haven't you done that? Are you interested in like the craft of just manually curating these things? Are you interested in manually updating them? Like, how much of this is a more or less like a resistance to let go of things that might be better suited for an agent to do?
Yeah.
Token automation specifically, diffing them, manually updating them, I think is ripe for like error. Like no matter
Mm.
how good you are with typing things or copying and pasting things, right?
Yeah.
Dependent on how much sleep you've gotten that day, or if you're doing this like while you're on a call, you might have one or two errors, and that's like commonplace. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's interesting because I don't know, just to challenge what you're saying, Davey, like, are you saying that there would never be errors if we ask AI to do something like that?
No, I think there's certain tasks that we do as design system maintainers that are really well suited for automation or placed somewhere in the pipeline for us to do and then come back and verify. And then token automation and token
Yeah.
linting and checking and diffing, I think, is one of
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. When I looked at these two these two answers, it's funny because if you just look at the charts, they're almost identical, right? Like, and so again, the difference between these questions was just the word could and should. So where could we automate things? Where should we? And we're trying to hone in on like, I don't know, the choices that we're making when we choose to sort of like say this is a task I am as an individual no longer going to do manually, and what is the cost of that? When I started to dig in further, what I learned is that about 25%, so about 50% of you gave the exact same answer for both questions. So if you said 50%, you said in the first one, you said that's what it should be. So that's half of us. 25% decreased their answers between could and should. So they said we should decrease, essentially, we should do less. And 25% increased, which was like we should increase the amount of automation. So it's a very interesting split. And so then I started looking, across those data, those data points, so like who increased, who decreased, into the way they answered questions 3 and 4. And that's where I started to see some really kind of interesting things emerge. In my assessment, the one of the most interesting ones, and I think let's see, I think you called out this one too as well. Is that right, Davey? Is this the other? Yeah, avoidance reasoning. These two seemed really interesting, right? So the folks who decreased from Q1 to Q2, they used the phrase human in the loop to mean sort of humans are essential to the process and to the learning. The group who increased kind of used things that phrase human in the loop more to mean like, hey, we just need a final check. Like it's somewhere at the end, we need to give it a thumbs up. And so that's actually a very different mental model for how humans are involved in the work, right? So that was one thing I thought was really interesting. And then David, do you want to share a little bit about what you saw with this one?
Oh yeah, I think in terms of like avoidance reasoning, avoidance is also like I think a strong word. Like we've seen on my team that there's folks that are really interested in things like building components, maintaining components, generating new components, generating instances, all that stuff. And because that's like a part of the work that they deeply enjoy, they do not want to automate any of that stuff. So even things like going in and doing like manual review, they enjoy the that sort of stuff, and they enjoy that. I call it like low level work, right? Much like the folks that love to maintain tokens and like to manually curate them. So it's more of just that's the way they like to work, and they're not necessarily tuned to like modify that thinking quite yet.
Yeah. Very cool. So lots of interesting stuff in the data, folks. Would love to hear your assessment. And this is the moment where we open it up. So if you have questions, if you have ideas, you can raise your hand in Zoom. We will certainly call on you. Kalig, first to it, buddy. What you got?
Hey, thanks for
Hey.
for setting this up today. Yeah, quick question. So do you think this is how people like to work, or is this the only way they know how to work, and therefore there's a lack of know-how and automation is not really in their DNA, and that's something they would need to learn?
What do you mean by this? Are you saying like using AI
I
to
mean,
automate things?
so yeah, I mean, using AI or just automating,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of somebody who who deliberately want to do these things manually. All the
Mhm.
syncing between all these sources, exporting manually, syncing manually. Like, uh, if somebody knew how to automate that, wouldn't they just
Gotcha.
do it?
Davey, do you want to respond to that? If somebody knew how to automate, wouldn't they just do it?
Yes, yes, and I think part of it is wanting like leaving having like control like in your hand. So that might be like potentially like a job security sort of thing, or like an ownership sort of thing. Like I want to be able to either control the syncing, or even if you do have automation, potentially being like the only one that is able to do it. So I think there's a lot of factors involved, but yeah, that's sort of like where my thinking was going.
Yeah, I was sort of, I think
Mm.
for me, like, nothing is free in my mind, right? And I think we think of automation as like a way to get something for nothing. And I don't think that that's true. Like, and even these mundane tasks that are a pain in the butt to do, and the syncing, all of that stuff that's very manual, time consuming stuff. Doing it also increases your understanding, and there are things you learn in that process. And so I'm not saying we have to always do it, but I do think we have to acknowledge the cost, right? So what are we missing? What are we paying when we get this sort of free automation? Kayla, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And also you're kind of starting to touch on the cost of maintaining those automations, because anytime you put an abstraction in the path to delivery, this has a life of its own. So it's not free, as in like you just set it up and forget about it. There always are little things that will break, or things that
Yeah.
need human attention, and it's an interesting balancing act sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you. Peter, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I wanted to kind of bring up is, and it was something else that some other folks brought up in the chat as well, was I think we need to be kind of clear about automation versus AI, um, and be very clear about those definitions, because like the way that I've been working, which is heavily into AI, I do not necessarily consider automation. Like I consider like working with AI fairly manual in a sense, even if it is performing actions. But automated, I would define as basically kind of workflows that are coded or are kind of process enabled that just run automatically without really kind of any kind of, you know, kind of thought or LLM into it. So for example, like the way my tokens are created, I kind of like I work with AI to kind of create and add the tokens, but then I have an automated flow to kind of create the tokens for iOS, Android, and web, in basically yeah, it's just basically just run code and then make things go out, is more the way that I think about automation. And
Yeah.
that's actually that's an area that I kind of got caught up a little bit in the survey, was kind of
Yeah.
like flip flopping between those two kind of definitions. So I think it even should kind of have an idea like, how does my definition of automation and AI compare to like everybody else's?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that the intent here with this was to talk about using AI to do automation. So it's the overlap of those two things, and not, we weren't intending to conflate them, right? Like, of course, there are automations that don't involve AI. There have been for decades at this point, so we're not trying to say they're the same thing. So great call out. I don't know if others had that same kind of confusion in the questions or not, but Davey, anything you want to add to that, or?
No, that's about on.
Yeah.
And Sarah pointed out that too. Yeah, like
Okay,
it's
great.
the intersection of the two. And
Yeah.
one example might be like now we as designers, design system maintainers, we have the ability to utilize AI to write these simple automations that
Yeah.
run on their own, but we do need to watch the watchers that
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
doing the work from time to time, obviously.
I like that. I like that. Doug, what's up?
We had an interesting thing. I definitely tend towards deterministic code. So dealing with the non-deterministic nature of AI is just something I don't reach for automation as much as I probably could. But on our team, we have our release process is somewhat automated, but then there's stuff that we do just because we care about the output, and we've not bothered to completely fix our release process, our automated code release process. So there's different things that we check, and if it enters this thing or if it incorrectly picks up this change, we back it out. Well, my coworker turned that whole thing into a skill, so he has AI do the releases now, and it asks questions and does stuff. But it instead of spending a couple hours figuring out the tooling and changing it so we don't have to have those steps, AI is smoothing over the thing, and so he was able to do that really quickly, and it's been very consistent. So it's just a different way of thinking about it. I would spend time trying to solve the automation so it's deterministic every single time. And for him, the non-deterministic nature allowed it to be quite flexible without changing our tooling. The tooling is exactly the same as we were using before. So that was interesting.
I like that. Randy.
Hi, longtime listener, first time caller. So I just wanted to bring up that automation is really in the life cycle of a process. It is the mature end of a process. Like automation is not in and of itself just, a goal. It is it's running something that's proven. Like, kind of like building off of what Douglas said, you want to be able to have reproducible results. And so like jumping straight to automation may be successful because maybe AI understands what you're trying to do, but it is better to think of in terms of like automation as the final form of a cow path. You've got like a path that people take, and then you start like putting down paving stones, and then suddenly it turns into a road years later. It's automation works best whenever it is a process that has proven. And that's something that I think like a lot of my experiments with AI, like when I try to jump past that thinking through the process and having it have it become proven, is where I run into the most problems with AI.
Yeah, I like that actually. And I think that what's cool about that is it allows us some of the learning, still as humans, right? To sort of like work through it, get into the weeds, do the manual migration or whatever it is, so that we know what to automate, so I think that's a healthy way of thinking about it. Davey, any thoughts on that?
No, I think the maturity also ties back to like this a bit. I do want to mention back to what Douglas was saying is like a mechanism to do this as a repeatable fashion is through skills. So whether you have a process that works or if you are not yet at that maturity level, but you have another team that has captured this as a skill, that's another mechanism to try it out.
Yeah, I love it. Sarah, jump in.
Yeah, I love the last two comments, kind of talking about like the maturity of your design system and using AI for automation. Something that Davey had said earlier, talking about the avoidance, is really it's like changing your mind shift. And I've been trying to do that with my team. Is really it's a mindset shift, and AI is a tool. And I feel like we so much are like solve everything with AI, but I think somebody had mentioned earlier, it's like looking at the actual problem and what are we trying to solve. Um, Whereas like it is that the person before me, sorry, forgot your name already, was talking about the like you have to like have that process and then look at the whole process and then see where automation fits in. But I think it's the same as like, where does AI fit in to all of that? And it's a mindset shift, right? It's like starting with where can AI fit in and where does it best fit in, sort of back to the original question, what could be automated versus what should be automated. I feel like we should be asking those questions at every turn, and shifting our mindset toward what is the best implementation of AI to solve these problems.
Sarah, are you feeling like it? I love that sentiment that we need to be much more intentional about the places where we do this. Are you feeling pressure organizationally to not have that consideration? Like, that feels to me like that would be table stakes for this kind of thing. But I also hear what you're saying, which is like, it feels like a lot of people are just automating the heck out of everything because they can. So what's the tension that's led you to say that?
Yeah, I would say at Target, I mean, it's like AI, running on AI, moving from using AI to running AI every day, all day, AI, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can check that box, show your leaders, hey, I'm using AI, it's like, it feels like that's what everybody needs to be doing. And we're at a place at Target where there is a shift happening, where it is this like, everybody's just learning and trying to use AI everywhere they can without the thoughtfulness. And I think there is like this, I call it the pendulum swing, right? It's like everybody's using it and it's all over here and it's everywhere, and it's swinging back sort of to the middle, where we kind of talked about this like a month or so ago, is the context and the architecture of AI solutioning really needs to be thought through before we're building a bunch of stuff. Like, people just jump straight to agents without thinking about, in a design system world, you need to have like solid context to provide to large language models to work within. So yeah, I think there is definitely a push for that. But in doing so, at a large organization like Target, we're also seeing a lot of overlap, where people are building the same things and solving some of the same problems without talking to each other.
Yeah.
And so some of it's reusable and some of it is like shareable, and other stuff it's like, well, you didn't think about these 10 contexts because that's not really your domain. You're just trying to like jump straight to a solution. So yeah.
Yeah, so good. Thanks, Sarah, for the extra context. Davy, when you've, I'm going to put you on the spot here, because when we first looked at this, you were like, I'm nervous because I'm trying to automate everything. So I want you to respond to Sarah. Like, how are you feeling about all this right now?
Yeah, I think there's like the step where you get all these different tasks or these asks from your design leads and your managers and such, and then you step back, take a deep breath. Like, how much of this stuff do I like to do? How much do I want to do? How much of this can I automate? And then how much of this stuff can I mentally run in parallel? So that's like another aspect of this, which is I think especially for like folks that have a hard time like context switching, like running, being able to run a lot of these jobs, and potentially maybe these tasks are research tasks or discovery tasks, running them in parallel while you're working on another thing. So
Yeah.
I'm of the mind, I think, where I'm trying to be at like the 60-ish percent, 70% of my work is starting off with some sort of automation and AI to support myself.
Yeah. Interesting. And Bill, I want to bring you in, my friend. I think I'm also going to call you out. You said 0% and 0%, I think, in your answers to questions 1 and 2. So give it to us, buddy.
But no, I'm not going to be too down on this. And I think I would change that, actually, thinking about what Doug said about having just a little co-pilot there on your release automation is very useful. And people have talked about the determinism and how critical that is. And there's areas where determinism is just too important. I mean, I used to be principally a build engineer, and having to worry about what the random seed on the OS was critical to reproducible builds. So you can imagine, like, putting some matrix multiplication into that is a recipe for disaster. But I think the more interesting thing is what the last few people have been talking about, in terms of at what point do you go for AI. And I think one of the risks with using using AI anywhere is that it doesn't challenge you enough necessarily. And a lot of automation comes out of human boredom and frustration with having to do a repetitive task, right? Computers don't mind doing that. We do. So we have to try and automate it. And having automated a fair number myself, there's somewhere you get to that point where you go, well, this is really hard to automate. Perhaps it's not a good process. Like by using the enormous power of AI to allow you to automate away any mundane task or difficult task, you lose the opportunity to say, well, does it need to be this difficult? Are we actually doing the right thing? Which it's not to say that you can't use AI to automate it in the end, but it's just one of those things where AI doesn't really always challenge you when you say, hey, automate this, and it doesn't say why. That's a stupid thing to do. Whereas if you go and speak to your release engineering manager team people, and they say, no, we can't do that because it's, you just lose that human conversation and discovery of what is actually a good thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. So to summarize that, Bill, you're saying in previous time before AI, when you would automate things, occasionally you stumbled upon something that in the midst of trying to automate it, you were like, okay, why the heck are we doing things this way? It made you question your process, and because AI will do it no matter what, you lose that knowledge. Is that kind of the sentiment?
Yeah, it's trying to automate process exposes their flaws and non-determinism in them. And so using AI to solve complex problems is good, but using it to solve non-deterministic problems is
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Bill. Stephen?
Yeah, everybody's had such good insights here. So I had a lot of thoughts, but I'm just going to focus on like a couple things. I think the way I've been looking at this is like I see this, and I've been pretty much heads down in the AI design system stuff now for the last few months, because that's been the directive I've been given. But like I kind of see it as, I think there's a very clear line with things that are good for AI to do and things that AI are not supposed to do. Like I think it's pretty easy to sometimes ask that question of, is this a yes or no, on or off thing that is just very black and white? Or is this something that needs some like intelligent reasoning behind it that, an LLM might accelerate for me, that might take me a whole day of thinking about this problem to come up with, some valid solutions or something like that. So I try to apply that to a lot of these decisions of, because I see a lot of people using AI for stuff like, make sure my code is not doing this thing. And it's like, that's just a test or like a linting rule or, what it might be. And I know we've been talking about tokens a lot, and, I try to just combine both of these things into one, right? Like when I look at it, I'm like, okay, the token diff, right? Some changes have been made to tokens. I don't want to use AI to figure out what the diff is. I might want to use AI to explain that diff of the tokens in, our token consumer friendly terminology that might be easy for them to understand. I'm not a technical writer. Like at heart, I'm an engineer. I'm not ever going to be able to write stuff in a way that people like to read. That's just not who I am. So I can automate that process of, I use it daily to automate like pull requests and, Slack messages. And here's the changes that have been made to the system. Like, list them out in a nice way. That used to take me like half a day or a whole day to like put those types of things together, that I can now automate and say, hey, look at all the changes over the last week and like give me a nice executive summary for my boss who wants like 3 bullet points that are 1 sentence each. That used to take me so long. And I can automate those things now that allow me to work on the things that are important. Because I really agree with like the human in the loop. I think the way I framed it was, a lot of this stuff needs like a human touch. Like I don't want to automate adopter feedback and have my users talking to an AI and then distilling that information and giving it to me. Like I want to talk to them. I want to automate stuff that allows me to have time to go spend an hour sitting with my users and understanding the problems that they're having. So that's kind of the way I see it. I think these things will live in conjunction together. Use AI to automate things that might be hard to automate, that you just never had time, right? It's like, I don't have time to write these scripts and do these things. Maybe I can use AI to like help me write that script. So yeah, that's Yeah. But I think I mostly agree with, I think everybody's almost on the same page, it sounds, which is nice to hear.
That reminds me of some of the conversations we had last session with Doug, who's here actually too, co-hosting around extreme customer support in systems. You know, like you want to have that conversation. It's okay for them to reach out to you because you're going to learn so much in that moment, in that conversation. Davy, anything to chime in here?
I was thinking like I read a tweet that said like this is it's amazing that Cron is having like its renaissance moment in like 2026.
Yes.
It's like this is where my mind goes back to.
Gosh, yeah. Lauren, what's going on?
Hi. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, super insightful. And I think like the obvious thing, it seems to be kind of a shared consensus about human relationships, like the loss of connection, what AI can kind of get in the way of us communicating and kind of getting on the same page and that knowledge transfer. But I think that we've been using it to train our team because I think, you know, new tools come out all the time. So we've been working on like a wiki, essentially whenever someone learns about a different, you know, feature or a new skill, it's actually kind of brought our team quite closer because it's meant that we have this kind of shared knowledge. So I think the human relationships is, yeah, it can kind of swing both ways. Just wanted to add that.
Can you say a little bit more? Like, do you have an example or something that you can think of specifically where you feel like that sort of experimentation or use of AI forced your team to kind of reconnect in a new way? Or
so, because there's so much to learn and it's constantly changing, I've essentially built out like a dashboard and all of the team have profiles on this like wiki. And so there's kind of progress reports. They can see how much content they're getting through. So for example, we've been exploring how to build out our token architecture. And we've done all these workshops with like our devs and trying to understand, okay, what's working, what isn't working. We really want to be able to bake in kind of more of a multi-tier system. And so through those workshops, we've then captured those meetings in this wiki so that we've got that information. And then we've got this kind of source of truth just as a page on the wiki so that all of the team can now look through it. And if they haven't read it, then that shows up on their progress and says, oh, you haven't kind of checked in on this information. So it's kind of just assisting us with that knowledge transfer without kind of beating us with a stick.
Gotcha. Nice. Thank you. Callista, welcome. Hi.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to tie back to something Sarah and both Randy were kind of had the similar sentiment in that automation is maybe the final part of all of these processes. And I went to a panel yesterday where Mark Ciafrani from Kin Insurance made the analogy that right now, the way that maybe designers should be looking at AI in general is he used the analogy of the Beatles with music, which really stuck with me, of how it was a lot of experimentation and play. And I think that it would be really interesting to see a lot of these organizations that are pushing AI into design teams allow teams to have structured playtime with just exploring different MD file formats and different ways to prompt or build prompt templates across their team. Because right now, of course, we don't have those industry standards for any of this because we're all kind of at the starting line together. And I think that organizations that we see do push forward on that structured playtime are going to be the ones that have the ability to really shape the industry standards of those guardrails, whereas the other organizations are going to be learning from the ones that have already spent time playing and experimenting there.
I love that. Yeah. And I saw some folks talking about, hackathons, Elizabeth. Yes. Super cool. Thank you, Callista. That's a great insight. While we're getting to some of these other raised hands, there's a question down here which says, what are you already automating with AI? So if you have a moment, jump into the Fig Jam. You can drag out a sticky note from this one and just drop in. I want to hear the things that you're using AI to already automate. So do that in the Fig Jam, and then we'll come back to that. Guy, jump in.
I joined halfway through, so please tell me if I'm already repeating things that people talked about. But I wanted to react to something that Callista just said about and other people said in the chat as well about the experimentation. And this is exactly where I feel my organization was in last year. Like, we were really told to go try every tool, experiment, find things that work for you, find the sort of the edges of where it makes sense. This year, it's a complete change. Like, there's still, hey, try this new thing, but there's a lot of leadership has set the expectations, or they have they said, use these tools and get us 20% efficiency. Like, all those things, there's already been a decision of how well they're going to be working. Claude Design was announced Friday. We already have people saying, yeah, we can use it to tie it to Claude Code and do all those things, like, and we haven't even tried it. I'm curious to see how that is affecting people's work. The fact that they have to meet this yet another imaginary number that someone defined on this thing.
Yeah. What do you think they looked at the experimentation from last year and said, okay, that's enough, it's time to put it into practice? Like, what
no,
okay.
No, that would be too smart. I think it's another symptom of the CEO said something.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Anytime we bring AI into the conversation on the question, we get these, examples of executives, seeing a demo, reading a post, and just asking for that to be the reality immediately, So yeah, that's a common one. Donnie, did we get it working?
Let's see. Did I get it working?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well done.
Ben knows how much I hate audio. We work
I do.
to try to fix my podcast downstairs. But the question I had actually was about, Davy mentioned earlier, and we were talking about skills in the chat as well. And I was at a meetup last night where we're talking about skills versus MCP. And the question is from my perspective is, if we are focusing on the skills as a direction to take for people to, activate something, my understanding was that the skills are effectively impossible to update because they're all local to people's machines, where I would have found an MCP to be more of a thing that could update on the fly and be more remote, and like when that needs to, when we have updates to the system, guidelines and things like that, connecting to the MCP from a source of truth, like we like to call it, I think would make more sense than the skills. So if for the folks that are using skills as their main mechanism to provide guidelines, how are you keeping those things updated in sync across organizations?
Great question. Davey, you want to jump into that?
Yeah, I think you could have them on a local level or a project level, but yeah, we've been putting them on like the repo levels, like in different directories, and that's worked out pretty good. But we're still trying to figure out what is like the best way to distribute them, because it is like a I don't believe there is awareness like in Figma, for instance. Like, if I publish an update to a skill, like, you downstream and your CLI will not know that I published this. So it's sort of like we need to figure out how that works. And also, like, in the prototyping world, for those of us that are prototyping in tools like V0 or Replit, that is also like a problem right now, where we're trying to figure out how can we distribute skills across like a workspace versus hey, Donnie, I've updated my skill. Can you go pull this down?
Yeah.
Well, it's not the same problem that we have right now about like having some new version of a thing that comes out, and then you got to tell the world that there's a new version, and some people listen to it, some people don't listen to it, some people do the command, some people don't. So like, that's the thing that I feel like, the MCP kind of solves for, where connect to it once, and then you always get the latest whatever, in terms of guidance and stuff like that. So that's why, like, I keep seeing the skills stuff. I'm like, I get the skills being good for your local, what I'm working on in my space, but for the organizational one, I have yet to seen a good, I guess, ecosystem that supports updating of skills in a way that people don't need to think about it so much, but you do get the latest and greatest. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Peter, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to try to take my best stab at Donnie's kind of
Oh, yeah.
question. So now, granted, I'm using a different tool with using Kiro versus Claude Code. So skills slightly different than some of the things, or at least the naming is slightly different. So this could be off. But the key for me that I've been able to get is to use both. So I use the MCP as the kind of domain knowledge container. It is basically the library of all the information. And then all of my custom agents basically plug into that MCP to pull their skills and all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So really kind of the MCP acts as a library. So every agent has access to the information on that MCP. But certain agents have are inherently tuned in to specific aspects of that MCP, specific aspects of the documentation that's stored on those MCPs. And I think this has been echoed in a lot of folks that I follow, is that you don't have like the MCP or the agent, but you use both in parallel, where you use kind of the MCP as kind of like your hub, but your agent has specific aspects of it to kind of focus on.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. If really quick, I just to chime in on that too. I actually just did this today. We've been working on it the last couple of weeks. So we're using Cursor and Claude in our org. Both of those tools have marketplaces and plugins that you can add at either an enterprise level or public, right? Like Figma has a plugin, et cetera, et cetera. We basically just hosted a design system plugin in our internal marketplace for Cursor and Claude. And as I update skills and MCPs and agents and all of this stuff in the plugin, that just gets distributed out to everybody in our enterprise that's on our account. So like they just get the most up-to-date versions of those skills. And we can actually enable them and put them into people's workspaces automatically if we really wanted to. We're not doing that, but that's also a way that if you are in an org that's using those tools, you can, I would highly suggest looking into plugins for those, and you'll find a lot of good information.
Thanks, Stephen. Randy, what's up?
Hey, so one of the things that I really like AI for, like, pushing towards automation, is actually using AI to create tools to help with other tasks that I need to do. Like, one of the reasons why I kind of got into doing websites in the first place is because I'm like a builder and a maker. And I think that like we need to remember that like we can create these intermediary steps to help with automation, to help with very frequent tasks. And so that I think is one of the most exciting parts of AI, because like I had AI help me build like a type scale tool, helped me build a tool for doing like fluid type and spacing, because I don't want to do that math. Like I went to art school. I don't want to do math.
Yeah, I love that, Randy. Over in Redwoods, we've had a handful of folks build mini little sort of custom, plugins in Figma just to help them solve a very specific problem. They're not developers, they're designers, but they're building these things with the use of AI. And Davy, I think that's something that you talked about too when we first chatted about this, is like these very tiny sort of like tools that you can just on the fly come up with very quickly,
Yeah, that's right. Like these tools, or any sort of like simple like NPM scripts that you could run, and eventually, hopefully, they could be useful to somebody else. But they're always more so created so I could do something again very, very quickly.
Yeah. Guy.
I wanted to react to something that Keisha put in the chat about like being pulled in 100 different directions. Every day there's a new tool coming out. We're feeling it very, very much on our team. With our organization is using V0, Claude Code, Cursor, Lovable, Figma Make, and now with this new cloud design coming in. Shameless plug for my article that just came out 2 days ago about the hidden cost of saying yes to things. These are things that we haven't even said yes to. The organization told us that we need to support from a design system perspective, or if we don't support, then someone else is going to be using their own solution with those tools. And we're really feeling now the stress of, okay, we need the expectation of product design teams is that we're the ones who are supporting V0's horrible support for a design for ingesting a design system, and we're the ones who have to go and talk to them and maintain that relationship and maintain that level of quality, and it's something that we would never sign up for if we had the choice.
Yeah. Thanks, Guy. I think that thread there, Keisha, appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I think in my mind, the way we address this challenge of feeling completely overwhelmed is by having community like this, right? Because no one person can possibly stay up to date on all this stuff. So if we can bring our minds together in these kinds of conversations, that's how we do it, you know. Doug, what's up?
I have a very specific question, and if it's too specific, it can totally be tabled. But Davey, you mentioned that you're using an MCP for your design documentation. I think that was you that left the comment there. Yeah. What are there? I'm trying to I cannot find the right search term. Everything I'm coming up with is talking about how to use Figma MCP or how to use. I just wanted what are the best tools to expose your design documentation to an AI or in an MCP server? Do you have just a couple tool calls, then it does everything, or is there any guidance on that, or
Yeah,
even an article I can read?
Yeah, this is I'll have to try to find something after I give my response, but I think a lot of it is with setting up your doc site, for instance, for structured data. So we did this huge vision quest late last year to figure out is the Atlassian.design, the design system site, the best place for design documentation? Is this a place where designers and engineers go? Currently, yes, but in the future, this is one of the vessels of this design system information. So they've been writing and converting all of this information for all of the components and tokens into structured content that is in JSON form. So how this typically has worked, and as a designer, how I've interfaced with it is I would go and call the ADS MCP and then ask for specific token information, for specific usage guidelines, and that's the deterministic way. The people that are working on the MCP are making sure that it's completely deterministic and there's no wiggle room for any sort of ambiguity. But let me try to find you a link before we go. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, folks, we did it again. It's we have a couple minutes left, and somehow an hour disappears in what feels like 5 minutes. But cannot say how grateful I am for all of you jumping in, answering the questions so thoroughly. If you haven't had a chance, please go dig into that raw data. There's so many great stories in there. Get connected with Davy and I out on LinkedIn or Blue Sky or wherever you do your connecting. I know, Davy, I'll speak for you, but I love it when folks reach out and just want to talk shop. Always looking for that kind of conversation. Redwoods is open. We've been open for a year now, and I have dropped in. I don't usually drop this in here, but there's a code here for a free month. If you're interested in joining and you want to just test it out first, you can do that here. It's so much fun. A lot of folks on the call are in Redwoods, and we have great conversations like this every week. Tons of information from the folks who are over in Redwoods publishing. This is something we have a writing accountability group over in Redwoods. And so if you're somebody who wants to be writing more, wants to be sharing the things you're learning, you can join, you can be in that group, and we kind of spur each other on. Lots of fun stuff happening there. Tons of other really good articles also coming out from the community. Guy mentioned his article right here, The Cost of Yes, which is on the Zeroheight blog, so check that out. There's some fun events coming up. Zeroheight Converge is happening in October in Newcastle. I'm going to be there. A bunch of folks will be. We're going to plan a little hike. to go see some big trees like we do. I'm going to be in London for UX London at the beginning of June, and would love to see you there if you're in that part of the world. So please grab a ticket. They gave me a discount code as well. Join BC will get you 20% off. So tons of other stuff in here, folks. As always, very, very grateful for you. Davy, thank you so much, man, for bringing this topic. Lots of folks, lots of interest.
Appreciate it. Thanks for chatting. And I'll post more stuff in the Fig Jam. Love the Fig Jam.
Beautiful. That Fig Jam will stay open. You'll be able to read that going forward. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see you in a couple weeks for our next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Question. Remember, you can get access to the raw data, the collaborative Fig Jam, and all of the recordings for this episode and many more on my website, bencallahan.com. If you or your team could use an outside perspective on your design system program, I'd be honored to support you in that way. There's more information about my coaching and consulting offerings over on the site. Thanks for being here, and remember, stay in learning mode.